Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Between Sessions with Berries. I'm really excited to have our guest today. She has so many cool things going on. I couldn't even decide really what to talk about today, so we might have to have her back for more episodes. But let me introduce Dr. Lori Husband. She's a licensed clinical psychologist based in Nashville, Tennessee, with 15 years of experience spanning hospital systems, private practice, and digital mental health. She owns a telehealth-based private practice serving professionals in the tech and consulting industries with a specialization in dating and relationships. In addition to her therapy practice, Dr. Husband serves as a clinical advisor to early-stage digital health startups focused on AI-powered mental health tools. Oh my gosh, Lori, welcome.
Thank you.
I just want to dive into this so much.
much.
So I touched on it a little bit. Can you just kind of give us a little bit about yourself? And then this topic I want to dive in today is really talking about AI in our field and why it's just so emotionally charged for therapists right now. Maybe we could just dive into that conversation.
Yeah, that sounds fun. Yes. Yeah, I can share a little bit. So I've always been interested in technology. I was an early adopter of telehealth way before it was popular. And then when ChatGPT came out, I got really excited and just knew it was probably going to impact our field. And so I've been interested in it and then have worked for a tech startup, an early stage startup, and they were more building a chatbot. And so now I'm 100% in private practice, but I really enjoy educating other clinicians about how we can use AI ethically. So yeah.
I'm in the same boat with you. When I was already using like Jasper, like to do blog posts and maybe help with some social media stuff. And then ChatGPT came on. I was like, it's over.
Yeah.
I canceled my Jasper subscription and I was like, why do I even need it? Because ChatGPT is so good and I love it. It's my favorite form of AI. I know there's a ton out there and you could even debate that with a lot of people. You hear people say, no way, I'm Claude all the way or, Gemini all the way. But I'm in the ChatGPT camp.
Me too.
So.
Yes. Every day.
About you.
We talk. Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk about, well, you brought up like being telehealth, right? I mean, when telehealth like really came on the scene when COVID and everything, that was like really taboo. Like I did it in 2018 and even then it was like so taboo.
Me too.
And I feel like as technology evolves, like it's hard for the therapist world to like catch up and adopt these things.
Right.
COVID forced it. But now AI is on the scene. Before we hit record, we were just talking about a lot of the ways that we're already seeing it show up. So I would love to just get your opinion, your thoughts around that topic. Like, why is this such a polarizing topic for therapists?
Right. I think
Yeah.
there are a couple of reasons. I mean, one is our identity. A lot of our identity is tied to our work and the session, and we view that as a sacred space. And, we don't want anything that would potentially interfere with that sacred space, which is a good thing. But also, I think there could be just some, we don't change is hard. Change is uncomfortable. We don't want to do something that's a little bit different. We say we always worked in an office and we had our therapy room and, we did things a certain way. And then it was just uncomfortable to have to learn video and think about, is this as effective? And there was, quite a bias against that early on. I think, so one is we do have to look at our identity. What does it mean to be a therapist if we have AI that can offer education and interventions or it's more psycho-ed at this point, but what does that mean? Where do we sit? Are we going to become obsolete? That's the first thing. I think the second thing is maybe even some ego. Like we want to believe that it's us, it's our particular style, our wisdom that we bring into the room. And so that's a scary thought to think maybe it's not all me.
It's like, oh, I've been doing this for 25 years. How is an AI going to come in and replace all that experience and, knowledge that you just acquire inherently with seeing client after client after client, Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Right. And I mean, having said that, I've been a therapist for a long time and I don't think that we are going to go away. I think as we have more AI and more technology, the human connection is going to be even more special and valuable. So I don't think we're going to be replaced. I think it will, but it will become part of our work and our practice.
Quite a few of my clients have came in and said, well, I asked ChatGPT what to do about it, and this is what ChatGPT said. I even do it. I'm
Yes.
like, I'll have a problem.
Mhm.
My go-to is like, let me just ask ChatGPT what it thinks about this, which is probably not healthy to go to a bot, but it is my first instinct at this point to do that.
I've actually seen it be helpful. I've had some clients ask it for help on, how to deal with, say, a family member that has a different set of beliefs or something, and I found it to increase psychological flexibility, and
Yes.
yeah, we can use that in therapy and build on that.
What are the ways your clients are coming to you and talking about AI? Just anecdotally, I'd love to hear what you're hearing.
I've had a client say, she asked it to do like dream analysis, using a particular perspective. Like you could put in young and say, give me a Jungian, analysis of this dream. And I thought that was really fun
Yeah,
because I couldn't do that. I don't know that.
totally. It's a good supplement
Yeah.
for maybe skill sets we don't have.
Right. Or I think commonly in a relationship or interpersonal conflict, saying, I don't know how to respond to this. Can you help me? Tell me what to text back or something. I'm seeing that as well, like a real time help.
I've seen some arguments from therapists. Some I feel like are legit, others maybe not so much. And I think what you're saying about the ego is right on. Like it's really hard to think that maybe something could just come in and do as good of a job as we could.
Hmm.
I use berries for my notes and everything. They've recently released an AI assistant inside of berries, and I don't know if you've tried this AI assistant, but having it analyze and kind of being like a consultant over my shoulder, I've literally said to it, like, what am I missing with this client? And it listed about 20 things
Oh,
that
wow. I haven't tried that. Yeah.
try it.
That sounds interesting. Yeah.
I mean, maybe some people don't want to hear that, in
Mhm.
their clinical work. I found it super valuable because it was like, okay, I literally never thought of touching on grief when she lost a pet a month ago. Like it never occurred to me that that could be why some of her depressive symptoms are flaring because I missed it. I forgot. But when I used the AI assistant, it reminded me of that. And I was like, oh, yeah,
Wow. So it could help you be a better therapist.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
more
love that.
efficient, more
Uh-huh.
effective, I is
Yeah.
my perspective, but I think on the other end of it, there might be therapists that would feel threatened by that. I
Mhm.
don't want a robot telling me how I'm not doing my job. I mean, I could see people having that perspective too,
Yeah, or I mean, it may just be we want to be curious about it and say, yeah, do I want to, disregard that? And we still are the professional, and we do need to, whether it's a note or an AI assistant, we need to discern, do I agree with this clinically?
hmm
But I've seen different platforms say recommend an intervention or a homework assignment. I thought that was interesting because it's a thought partner.
Yeah, a thought
Mhm.
partner. I love that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, not something to be like concerned with or threatened by, but something that can enhance us.
And when
Yeah.
we're in like a solo practice like mine, I don't have a lot of thought partners. I can't walk down the hall. I'm at work from home, so I can't walk down the hall and ask someone. I do have peer consultation, but I, I think having a daily thought partner, that's so valuable.
And you do relationship and couples work too, I
Mhm.
guess, right? Is that what your bio
Yes.
said? Yeah.
Mhm.
Have you seen people? I mean, I had a client come to me and say that they were basically using it as a role play. They get to act like their wife and going back and forth with it to
Oh, wow.
practice
Oh, I've not seen that.
skills.
That's really creative.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see it on people saying, I don't know how to reply to this text. Tell me what to say.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Or is this healthy? Is this abusive? I mean, I think that's really helpful as well.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah,
Mhm.
I haven't considered using it for that, but that is really
Mhm.
good feedback. If the AI is like right.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
guess that's the
Mhm.
concern sometimes, with using AI for this stuff. It's like, yeah, it's not a replacement for clinical judgment always. Like it might have a general like definition of what abuse might be, but contextually, I don't know, does it matter?
Yeah,
You know?
it's probably not there yet, but it may get there someday, though. And that was another thing that I think is important for anyone who wants to work in the tech, mental health tech space, is that we definitely think we need clinicians consulting, in these companies like you do with Barry's, and we need to have a clinician in the loop.
Couldn't agree more. Yes. And I even hear other sides to that argument. I don't know if you've heard this, but saying why would you people have said this to me actually on my Instagram feed. Why would you support teaching the AI how to be a better clinician? You're putting us out of a job.
Yes, I hear that too.
Yes.
Right.
And I wonder, do you have thoughts on that? I mean, I feel like I want
do.
it to be right. I want it to do a good job if we're going to be using it, but I wonder, what do you think?
I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah, I've definitely seen that in the Facebook groups. I mean, there's no stopping AI. I almost think of it like it's going to become like Google it already is. If you Google, it will be so pervasive that everyone will be using it, and in the next 5 to 10 years, and we're not stopping it. It
Yeah.
is, it's coming, and so we can either have a voice or a seat at the table or not. And so I'd rather try to inform it. And yeah, it's already, I mean, it's too late. It's already
I feel
happening.
the same way.
Yeah.
I feel the same way. And you're so right. It's like every day, like my day-to-day things I use in my life, I'm seeing AI pop up. Like I opened a Word document the other day and all of a sudden there's AI inside of my Word document. I'm like, where did this even come from? Like I didn't even know they had AI in here.
Right.
On my phone, like how Siri is like AI enhanced. I mean, it's just like everywhere. And
Right.
yeah.
It's going to be ubiquitous. So, I mean, we have to think ahead and think. I hear the concern about training, AI models, or are they going to be, is there a nefarious component where they're taking data to train AI models and then get rid of us all? And there could be at some companies, but that is another thing I would recommend to therapists is to, if you're going to use AI in your practice, is to be discerning about, which companies do have a clinician in the loop. What are their security practices and privacy practices? Do they take that seriously? You do need to vet them out because ultimately it is our license. We have to follow our ethical standards and, legal guidelines.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, just pay attention to where you're putting the information to. Of course, we've mentioned ChatGPT, and not everybody knows this, but it's definitely not HIPAA compliant. You would
No.
never want to put PHI in there. But platforms like Barry's or, just certain chatbots, they're HIPAA compliant. They are meeting HIPAA standards for security, but you do want to do your due diligence and make sure before you put any information in there.
Right. Yeah. There definitely are companies that maybe they do want to take data and train an AI model, but to do therapy. But I don't think that will ever fully happen. And, there are really ethical players too.
Yeah. I read an article recently. I can't remember where I saw it. Talking about, I don't know if it was United Healthcare, one of the insurance companies, basically already a ton of research around like how can we introduce AI to reduce some of the more like EAP type symptoms, just like life stressors, and that how can we put that model forward before like a front line before they get to like the clinician, which I thought was super interesting. And of course that's going to be way cheaper for the insurance companies
Right.
to be able to do that. So
A good point. Yeah. Not everyone needs therapy too,
true. Yeah. And I mean, us as clinicians, I've had people with Z codes come in and, not meet criteria for a full diagnosis. They just need some coping skills or some psycho ed, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think another way I can see it really impacting our field, I'm sure it's already happening. I'm not involved in a training program now, but I used to be. But I think training therapists, so doing supervision, but all that feedback that if you were a therapist in training that you could get from, having a transcript, after a session, recorded or transcribed with AI, or feedback from an assistant that's trained in supervising.
Yeah, totally. There's so many ways it's going to be and probably already is being used in the field, especially in supervision situations. I mean, how amazing to be able to get a summary of your work instantly
I know.
from a clinical, and then of course, obviously a supervisor overseeing the feedback and that sort of thing, and also
Right.
doing their due diligence. But that even it changes the game for supervision and in the
Oh,
way we do
yeah.
supervision of clinicians. It's
You
just
could look
like,
at that. Yeah, I mean, this will date me, but I got my master's a long time ago in
same.
counseling, and I had to transcribe all my sessions. Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
which took hours and hours and hours.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And
Yeah.
those process recordings, do you remember those? Did you have to
Oh,
do like,
yeah.
oh, they were the worst. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. It's
Yeah.
like that was the worst. Seriously. Like having to analyze every decision point you made in the session.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh. To
Yeah.
have AI do that for me, that would have been amazing.
Yes, it is. It is. So, I mean, there's a lot of ways in which it's really going to make us better
Yeah,
clinicians.
I think so
Yeah.
too. So you mentioned in your bio that you worked for a tech startup and
Yeah.
it was a chatbot that you were working on. Was that a HIPAA compliant chatbot or like what was the functioning for how that would like interact with a clinician or a clinician's practice? I'm just like super curious about that. It's interesting.
Yeah, it was a startup that it was a clinician in the loop startup. So it was integrating telehealth therapy and an AI chatbot that offered me almost like reflection
Oh,
when the therapist wasn't available, some like CBT type, noticing your thoughts, almost like an ABC sheet or a thought record where you could have the client complete that and then the therapist could look at it. So more kind of continuous support when the therapist was not available. So it wasn't just a chatbot like on its own. It was integrated into therapy.
yeah, I've myself been like playing around with a HIPAA compliant chatbot environment where this can be like it's like a clone of yourself, a clinical AI clone of like yourself, your skill set, the way you would talk about things, the way you would interact with your clients. And having that, I don't know all the logistics, but the idea in my mind is like having that as like the go-to, like go to my clinical clone. It's HIPAA compliant if you need help. These different chatbots, they'll record conversations, keep the transcripts, that sort of thing, so you can go back and review it as the clinician later. Support system that's still you. So they're still connected to you. They're still using AI in that capacity, but with you in the clinical setting almost, like staying in that clinical container. So yeah, I just think that's super interesting.
That's really exciting. That's interesting and neat. I haven't heard of anything like that.
Yeah, that I'm trying to figure it out. Try because I want to like basically figure out how to have a prototype in the background that I can give to other therapists to be able to duplicate it and do it on their own. Because the other thought, I have lots of income streams, and the other thought I had was, how can you monetize that? It's like, could that be an upcharge? Like, hey, you can have me once a week for this fee, or can we, sell this upcharge package where you can have access to my clinical clone that's going to help you when you need me between sessions, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's great because that's one thing I worry about with our field is burnout, and that if
Yeah.
and so that could really help with instead of offering a higher level of care or higher touch service that you don't have to be there, but you still review it, but you don't
Yeah.
have to text in real time.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I can't figure out all the logistics, but I think that would be, I think it's the future really to have these clones of ourselves. If you're on Facebook or anywhere, I mean, I probably get advertised a lot of AI stuff, but I'm seeing these clones, marketing clones of expert marketers. And like, I really feel like that's the future for anybody in like a service field where you're like giving content to people to help them like change and grow and that sort of thing. So I just think that's the next evolutionary step with this stuff, really,
That's so interesting. I'm so happy to learn about that because I
Yeah,
haven't.
well, you're in my clinical AI club, so
Yeah, yeah.
keep your eyes peeled. If I figure it out, y'all will be the first to know how
Okay,
I figured it
great.
out.
Yes, I will look for that.
And there's so many things like that. I don't know, you being in the tech world too, are you seeing other tools, AI tools that therapists are already sort of incorporating into their practices or no?
Yeah, I would say the way I use, say, ChatGPT the most, and I think other therapists are as well, is marketing. So, there is a lot of invisible work that we don't think about with therapists, with running a business. And so a big part of that work and owning a practice is we have to market. And we have to have the SEO and write blog posts or write directory listings. So that is so helpful. ChatGPT is great for that. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lifesaver. It's doubled my capacity to be able to like show up in all the places and put my ideas out there more quickly. It's just yeah, it's just changed everything. It's
Right.
unbelievable. Yeah.
And you can, upload everything. You can create, your personal bot and upload your whole brand and your ideal client, and then say, give me some ideas for a blog post, and that partner role. So I use it that way a lot. I think I know other therapists, like neuropsychologists, are using it in a HIPAA compliant way to help write reports, neuropsych reports, and which is quite labor intensive. And
Yes.
yeah, so I think
Oh my
that will be
gosh.
another way.
Yeah, imagine how much easier that is for them. I mean, you're a psychologist, I guess, so you are familiar with probably the things that go into those testing and the reports that come out of those. Like I remember like just when I did a lot more clinical work, just when court was involved with kids and all that, and having to get the psych evals, and it would take weeks and weeks and weeks to get these reports back, and help with custody decision, like all kinds of stuff. It's just going to speed that process. It's going to save lives. The more quickly we can
Right.
get that information back, the more it can protect people that might be at the other end of somebody who needs a psych eval.
Exactly. Right. Right.
Um,
Yeah. I think it'll make it. I mean, there's such long waits for things like testing, and my friends who are neuropsychologists, they would often be up at midnight writing reports, and
yes.
yeah, so I think it will help with like burnout and just quality of life. That's something I've seen was with notes. So yeah, I do use AI scribes for note taking. I've tried berries, and I know I used to have this weight, this emotional and mental burden every night because I was not finished with my notes. And my family would hear about it. I'd say, I gotta go do my notes while they're, ha- hanging out. And then
Yeah.
it's improved my life so much that it's to know they're done at the end of the
Oh
day.
my gosh. I know. Yeah. I did a presentation the other day talking about AI and productivity and just the burden of being in a session and having to remember like what you talked about, especially if you can't get to your notes until like the weekend or something. It's like,
Right.
oh my gosh, what did I even talk about? Like for me anyway, it was like a nightmare. So, one thing you talked about in here was you mentioned that you are helping therapists explore AI, just similarly to how I'm doing. And are there mindset shifts that have helped them move from tech skeptical to tech curious? Like, is there anything you've seen helpful with these people that we're talking about that are in Facebook groups that may be like so
Right.
anti AI?
Uh-huh.
Have you helped with the mindset shift?
I mean, the Facebook groups can be hard because the therapist Facebook groups can be an interesting place. So, I mean, if
Yeah.
it's sort of like if somebody's completely against it, that's okay. I respect
Yes.
that. I mean, and just like, and the same thing happened with EHRs, electronic
Yes.
health records. Yeah, I mean, that was a new thing. That was a controversial thing. And I still have colleagues that use paper notes only. So, there will always be a subset of therapists who are more comfortable with their current systems, right? And it is hard to believe now that like electronic health record was controversial, but it was.
I know. Yes, that's such a good point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was because we worried about security and privacy, and same thing that we worry about with AI now. So I do think AI will be in that same vein of will be just like an EHR. Everyone will use it, and you hopefully not all clients want to use it too. So that's an important point. Is I mean, I never require a client to use it. I always get explicit consent, talk about the potential risks. And so we will have to, there will probably always be a subset of clients who prefer we don't use it. But yeah, so I mean, talking about it in those ways of like, there are waves of technology, EHRs, telehealth, and that can be just a way to open dialogue. Friends who weren't using it, I would just talk to them about it and peer consultation or just, in passing say, I tried this. This is really cool. What do you think about it? And then usually they would maybe start asking a question. Yeah, what platform are you using? And
Yeah, and I love that, just reminding of the history of our field, all the controversial stuff that's come along over the years. EHRs, online, digital records. Gosh, it
I
hasn't been that
know.
long when that was a huge deal.
It hasn't. Yeah, I think I started my private practice in 2015, but I worked a little bit in private practice before that, and I had paper records, and it hasn't really been that long. Let's see, other ways to help clinicians get curious is just, I think talking about the fears, the objections, because I also want to be open to that and I want to think about that. I don't want to just be like, it's great, like I do want to think about, okay, what are the impacts if it's training an AI model? Or, yeah. So, but I think hearing, being curious and hearing both sides, like concerns and benefits.
Yeah. I loved having this conversation today. And I hope
Yeah.
anybody listening, feel free to reach out to Lori. We'll have all her information in the show notes. Since you're in this area and you're up to date with tech and everything, I think you're probably a really good person to go to if people have questions about some of this AI stuff and how you're using it in your practice. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. I'm just starting like an AI information website. So it's still really new. It's called AI for Psychologists. I mean, it's for all therapists, but I just have some articles in there about the ethical use of AI, the pros and cons, like of using an AI scribe. And then I'll just kind of anything that I'm seeing would be helpful, writing some articles about it.
That's
It's just
amazing.
educational. Yeah.
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 And the website is
It is AI for Psychologists.
AI for Psychologists. Amazing. We'll put it down
Yeah.
in the show notes.
Thank you. Yeah.
It's
Thank you so much for
fantastic.
having me on. I could talk to you much longer. So
I know.
we'll
I know.
do it again.
There's so much to talk about. That's why I was like, you might have to come back because there's so many other like areas we could touch on with this. So I would love that. Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Thanks a lot.